Hey, Mark Sept with HurricaneTrack.com here, back in the office in Wilmington, North Carolina. Going to take a look at Isaac and Florence and try to convince you that even though Florence has weakened, that it is still very formidable and could still bring pretty sizable impacts to you if you live in the area. Even if you live in the area and you have evacuated, when you come back, you could see the results of those impacts. So been a busy day, a lot of research, a lot of work going on, and setting up of a camera system up in Oriental. Really trying to focus in and understand where to place these camera systems. I only have 6 of them, but I think when this is all over, because of the success of some of the crowdfunding that we have had, I'll be able to add a couple of more, and that's great. The more the better. And Oriental, that's where we have the 3rd camera set up. So we have Rodanthe now out on the pier, Oriental, North Carolina, I'll show you where that is in a moment, and New Bern, North Carolina. Tomorrow morning, I'll figure out where to put a couple of more, maybe 3 more total, we shall see. Alright, so let's get right to it, taking a look at the National Hurricane Center homepage. Look at that. Almost looks like a constellation of stars out there. We have Helene, Joyce, Isaac, and Florence, and then this system here, 95L, which is expected perhaps to become a tropical depression. And so let's just start with this. We can look at the 5-day graphical outlook real quick, and you can see this is headed towards the Texas coast. Heavy rainmaker, locally rough surf conditions, rip currents, maybe some ocean overwash or Gulf overwash as it's called in that area where you have run up along the beaches, and a dangerous situation if you don't use common sense. Pretty much all of these systems can be thought of like that, so be mindful, be careful down there. Excellent meteorologist in Brownsville, Corpus Christi, up in the Houston area. So follow them on social media. You know who they are by now, most likely. And if you don't, just ask. Then we have Isaac, and we'll look at that real quick. Forecast to remain a tropical storm through the next 5 days, passing Jamaica to the south. So Jamaica, you could see some rainfall from this. There is also the chance, fairly high chance at that this degenerates into an open wave of low pressure. So instead of a closed circulation, it would be just a sharp trough of low pressure moving through the eastern Caribbean. And we have seen that before. Its name was Harvey last year, and some of the modeling in the longer range indicating that this region could be more favorable. So even if this degenerates into just an open wave of low pressure or a trough of low pressure, it'll still bring some inclement weather to the islands here. And then we have to watch for possible regeneration and impacts later on in the Caribbean Sea. So moving on from here, Florence. Before I get to, let me just show you the wide shot first. All the different features out here. There's Helene, subtropical storm Joyce. Here is the circulation being sheared pretty badly with Isaac. It's hard to keep up, isn't it? Luckily, there's nothing else coming off Africa of any consequence. Here, of course, is Florence and 95L. Almost completely evaporated there, didn't it? Pretty weird. So let's take a look at the stats on Florence real quick here, okay? So let's click on this. And interesting graphic there. You see that the 4 and 5 day areas have really expanded. Finally, I think this is going to come inland and then get on into the deep south and dissipate, not before bringing very heavy rainfall across a pretty big region and hurricane conditions along the coast, a damaging storm surge. And this really shows you how large the wind field is. This is the hurricane, folks. And that's the tropical storm force wind area. This is the hurricane force wind area. And so all of this, is going to be moving in this direction. All right? So time's running out. Tropical storm conditions and then hurricane conditions moving towards the Carolina coastline, and that will include a huge area. Tropical storm force winds extend outward up to 195 miles from the center, whereas the hurricane force winds extend out about 80 miles from the center. So that's very important. And yes, it has weakened, and I'm going to come back on. I need you to understand something. Even though Florence has weakened from its internal core structure, the eye wall, the energy that it is inputting into the ocean is still substantial, and it is still generating a tremendous amount of convection overall. It's not very deep convection or thunderstorm activity, but it's enough, the rising motion of the air because of the low pressure, creating a lot of rainfall. And that rainfall is going to move towards the coast with that large wind field just pushing everything ahead of it. And where does all of that end up? It ends up right along the coast of the Carolinas. And some of these coastlines are concave shaped, and the hurricane is going to push that water into that concave shaped coastline, piling up the storm surge. That also includes these sort of funnel shaped areas, blocking the mic, where the water gets pushed right in. You think about the heads of, or at least the closer part, the narrower part of the Neuse River Basin, not even the basin itself. You can tell I'm tired. The Neuse River, the Trent River, the Bay River, Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds, all of that is being pushed ahead by these strong winds. So please keep that in mind, that the storm surge values are probably not going to come down very much, because instead of a big fiery car crash, so to speak, where it's just like, oh my goodness, when we were looking at the possibility of near Category 5 and then maybe a strong 4 making landfall with a very well-defined intense core, i.e. the big fiery spectacular crash, you're still going to get a big wreck without the fiery part, so to speak. I'm just trying to let you know that if someone told you, hey, on Friday, a few days ago, they said, on Friday you're going to have a big fiery crash. You're going to have a wreck with a tanker truck, and it's going to be horrible. And then as it went along, they say, you know what, actually, it's going to be a wreck with just a dump truck. No explosions, but boy, there's still going to be a lot of energy. I think you would be pretty rattled if you knew that that was going to happen. It was a certainty that you were going to have some kind of a pretty bad wreck. On Friday, you would still pay attention, and I know the analogy is going to go off the deep end here, but the hurricane is coming. And unless it weakens down to some tropical storm strength before landfall, which is hard to fathom that could happen, it's still going to bring 20, 30, 40 inches of rain, possibly. It is going to bring the storm surge, as I've already talked about that, and widespread power outage is a major inconvenience. So yes, some of the bite has definitely been taken out for now because of the reduction in wind speed that we're seeing. But what if it comes back? Intensity forecasting is where the least amount of skill lies in hurricane forecasting. That's where the least amount of skill is, so please keep that in mind. Looking at some of the graphics here associated with Florence, we'll go back up here. There's that rainfall that I was talking about. Large area, 20 inches of rain, and then you look at the different contours here, 10 to 15, etc., and you get the idea. This is going to dump a lot of rain. Rivers are going to rise. This will be a problem long after Florence is gone. So when can we expect some of these winds? Let's talk about this real quick. We'll view the image here. This is the probability of some of the wind speeds occurring. Tropical storm force winds, and that's really high up, 90%. All right, so hurricane force wind probability overall. Let's see if this is going to pop up for me. Also very high, getting close to 90%. As we get closer to landfall, those probabilities, of course, will go up. Flash flooding, where you have very heavy rain in a short amount of time, high potential there in the pink shading in southeast North Carolina. So that's a big problem. Key messages, just to kind of reiterate some of these. That storm surge, please, honestly, this is a huge issue. Storm surge is a killer. It damages property. It's incessant. It invades your house like vines, that flooding coming in. If you've dealt with it, you know what I'm talking about. Our camera system in Oriental, North Carolina, is showing the water already starting to rise. And I've been tweeting pictures of that, out on my Twitter. So please, don't ignore this surge, as it is likely to cause some life-threatening flooding. The catastrophic flash flooding could be just terrible, and the prolonged significant river flooding in bullet point number 2 here. These are very serious things that don't necessarily change yet because the wind speeds of the core of Florence have come down. Hurricane force winds, damaging winds, of course, large swells has been a problem for some, a joy for others, others being those on surfboards. So please take this very seriously. It is not, hey, we're out of the woods. Yes, it is being undercut by 20 to 25 knots of southerly shear, kind of limiting the organization of the southern part of the circulation, but there is still tremendous energy being exerted into the ocean here with this counterclockwise rotation, the whole thing moving off to the northwest with a turn eventually here to the west-northwest and into perhaps the Cape Fear region with a direct hit over Wilmington, maybe, points north, points south. We will just wait and see. Eventually we will really be able to see this on radar. The discussion from Dr. Jack Bevan tonight, who wrote that, mentions that there's a time where we don't see it in this satellite imagery, but this upper level low near northeast Florida, probably in here somewhere, may back away enough that the shear lessens. All you need is 6 to 12, 18 hours maybe. 6 to 12 is enough, honestly, over very warm water temperatures. We see that right here. Florence is going to be crossing those very warm water temperatures on the way in. I mean, they're already warm, but you've got the Gulf Stream through here, and that water is deep, moving, etc. Lots of upper ocean heat content there. So don't think that it can't come back. It could also weaken more. Absolutely. Intensity forecasting, lots of challenges still to show and to deal with. All right, so the camera systems that I have up. New Bern, North Carolina, down at Union Point. Over here in Oriental, I have a camera system. Why? Because that flow coming across the sound here going to push the Pamlico Sound, which is a shallow, fairly large body of water, all this way, funneling it in to a narrowing, an increasingly narrow area. So what's the water going to do? It's just going to pile up all back through here, and then eventually, and then the way Oriental is, I mean, it's just really going to get shoved in there. And there's other towns too. I mean, heck, if I had the bandwidth and the network can handle it out here, I would have 20 cameras if I could, maybe one day. So there's another one up here in Rodanthe. I forgot to mention that. Why do I have one up there when the center is going to pass way down here to the south? Because, again, that northeast flow, the large waves, all of that, pounding surf, could be really interesting to see. Maybe we can learn something, too, when we watch it in time-lapse about how fast things happened, what the pattern was, etc. And it's just fascinating to see a live shot from the pier there in Rodanthe. So down here, I'm trying to still figure out where to put the last couple of cameras. I'm thinking that the Myrtle Beach area and points south, probably out of the woods in terms of a direct hit from major surge issues. So anywhere from Sneed's Ferry, maybe even up near Swansboro, all the way down to Carolina Beach. This is my final target area sometime tomorrow. If the eye comes over Wilmington, like we're seeing the possibility of that happening, believe it or not, I might be able, with the folks that are helping me, several people have come to help out, launch the hurricane research balloon, the Herbie weather balloon, the third version of the payload. The first version, when we tested it back in 2012, was made out of styrofoam, a cooler. Second version was a Pelican case that was, yay high by yay big. Third version is the same pretty much dimensions, but just a little bit shorter, and it's just not as tall, so it weighs a little bit less, several ounces less of overall volume of the payload. It has 2 GoPro cameras. Where are they? Here it is. 2 of these on there, GoPro cameras, a really amazing data collection system to record pressure, temperature, humidity from the surface of the Earth to the stratosphere. I've got the helium, the balloon, the payload, everything's ready in my garage, and we just might be able to launch it from the driveway of my house. Can you imagine the odds of that? I've got to hopefully the network will stay up and we can stream that live for everybody to see. You don't have to buy an app or become a member of anything. I'll put that on YouTube Live for the world to see, because that could be amazing. Then we have to get it back, and it could very well land, it could go up over Wilmington, do whatever, and then poof, land right here. It could come up and land over here. We don't know. There's no predicting it, as we saw last year when we were successful with our launch during Hurricane Nate in Mississippi. So I'll be tweeting and talking about that starting in the morning. And it's not just Wilmington. If the center comes in up here, we can jump on I-40. It'll start to decay, but we do have a little bit of a corridor here of safety because the I-40 corridor is wide, right? And there's no storm surge, just incessant rain coming. But we do have a window of opportunity somewhere in this area, and even down through 421 in Wilmington to launch that thing. Wouldn't that be amazing? If I could do it from my driveway, wow, wouldn't that be incredible? All right, real quick, the app, Hurricane Impact, available on the App Store. It's only $4, $3.99. Come on. One-time fee, it's a one-time cost. And you have access to an amazing suite of unique, innovative products, the video discussions, the maps that we put on, the tracking, and then really the live video. These cameras go in there. And, hey, we're up to number 11 in paid weather apps. Maybe we can get into the top 5, and I can show you something really amazing from these cameras that you can monitor what's happening from the safety of where you are. If you have the Android version from last year, it's not available on the Google Play Store right now because it does have some flaws, but we have made a modification to the Android version so you can at least see a rapidly updating still image instead of nothing at all. We were having problems with the video being treated as a video clip instead of live video, but we have at least made it so that you can see clips or pictures that update like a webcam would. So if you have the app from last year, fire it up and hopefully everything will work there. We're making the effort. We really are. Some great people trying to help me out. And I'm on Patreon, a wonderful crowdfunding method where I can post unique content just for the patrons that support what I'm doing, and that's for the long term. After hurricane season's over, I don't want you to forget about me. I'm still working on stuff for the next year. More camera systems, more weather data, etc. And gosh, we have so many things planned. I got to be able to pay for it. And then please follow on HurricaneTrack Twitter handle, @HurricaneTrack on Twitter. Okie doke, I'm done for now. Time for some sleep. Thank you so much for watching. Tomorrow it really does begin, and we will see what happens from there. I'll get up in the morning, produce a video discussion, outline the plan for the day, what's the latest on Florence, and we shall go from there. You yourselves get some sleep as well if you're in this target zone. You're going to need your energy. It's all about to start happening. I am Mark Sept for HurricaneTrack.com. I'll have more for you tomorrow morning.